Psalm 107. While we turn the Bibles, I want to ask one thing today. What is the special thing that you want to tell your Eternal Father this morning? What is the new thing that you have in mind today to tell the Eternal Dad what he means to you or what he sees to you? Anybody? If my son comes to me every day, every Sunday and says, Dad, I love you, or you're good, right? As humans, what happens? After some time, it becomes monotonous, right? We'll tell, Ethan, I'll say, probably, Ethan, say something different, say something new. It's become too much, or it's become like boring. Every Sunday you're doing that, right? So this morning, what do we have to tell the Eternal Father? Whatever we have in mind. Do we have anything new? Anybody? Okay, with that question in mind, let's go into Psalms 107. We'll read the first 8 verses and first 9 verses alternatively. But before we read that, let's all first read the last verse of this chapter, verse 43. Let's all of us read it, and please read your portion clearly, loudly, and with an understanding. Whoever is wise, let him heed these things and consider the great love of God. Now, let's read with that in mind. Let's go back to verses 1 through 9, and let's read it alternatively and read your portion clearly, loudly, and prayerfully. I read the first verse, we read the second verse. Give thanks to the Lord for His good, His love endures forever. Those He gathered from the lands, from east and west, and from north and south. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. They cried unto the Lord in their trouble, and delivered them out of their distresses. He led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. For He satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. Let's look to the Lord for grace. Loving Father, wonder-working God, in the precious name of great and awesome God, thank you for that supreme sacrifice, for your supreme love, Lord. The reason why we are here, Lord, as we come before you, empty my mind, empty our minds, empty my whole everything, Lord, and fill me with your word. Fill us with your exhortation to worship. We tell you, Lord, give us a new dimension to what you mean to us, what you are to us. Lord, we pray as we meditate on these words. Lord, we are humans. I am frail. I am human. Lord, hide me behind the cross. And Lord, talk to each one of us. Lord, please help us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, if you look at this psalm, the history of this psalm, there is nothing written on the top of the psalm. Normally it says a psalm of David, a psalm, sons of Korah, or somebody, a psalm of Moses. This one, nothing is written. So the Bible scholars look at it and they say that mostly the psalm would have been written when the children of Israel were coming back from the Babylonian captivity. And when they were coming back, they came back and they sang this song. And the chief priest was in the temple. He read through this psalm, and all children of Israel bowed down to worship. If you look at this psalm, it talks about 4 different aspects or 4 different areas. So in the first one that we talked about, we looked at, it gives us like 4 different illustrations of God's redemption, and it's personified in 4 different aspects of a human life. The first one that we talked about is about a lost traveler or a lost caravan who's trying to go to a safe city, but he doesn't know where he is, and he's hungry and thirsty. And the second one, which is from the 10th verse to 16 to 17, it talks about a captive prisoner who is in a dungeon waiting for execution. But this captive prisoner is set free. And then we look at the sick person who doesn't have any appetite, who is dying, and then who is miraculously healed. And then a doomed sailor who is on the sea and is caught by a perilous storm, who is about to die. So this psalm talks about a very interesting analogy of a human life, and is personified in these 4 different illustrations. Whenever we get chance, we talk about the rest of the 3 illustrations. Let's focus on the first illustration. Here he talks about, and just to give a brief introduction, the psalmist goes on to say, "Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good, and His love endures forever." And the purpose of this whole psalm is to call upon these children of Israel who have come back from Babylonian captivity. And they gathered in this new temple that Zerubbabel has built. The purpose of it is to give thanks to the Lord. And then, for whom is it addressed to? Let the redeemed of the Lord say this: those He redeemed from the hand of the enemy, those He gathered from the lands east and west, north and south. If I were to just imagine the 3rd verse and see the applicability to us, we come from different backgrounds, different parts, even in India, though majority of us may be from India, we come from different parts of even the same country. And it applies to us too, that God has gathered us from east, west, north, south. And I think we have people from all different parts here. And then it goes on. So if you look at each of these illustrations, right, each of these illustrations is very graphic. It explains the blessedness of God's redemption and God's effort to go and reach out to His people. And each of these illustrations, if you look at them, talks about the predicament, the situation that the troubled person is in. And then it looks at the petition that the troubled person offers, and then what God does, the pardon, that the redemption that God gives, and it culminates into praise. So all these 4 illustrations have these 4 characteristics of it. What is it? Predicament, petition, pardon, and praise. So here, the lost people are found, the lost people are redeemed, the people who are languishing for help, they are healed, and life-threatening people, the storm that is threatening them, he's coming, the sailor is coming back to the safe harbor. Let's look at the first illustration where he talks the predicament of the first one. Verse 4, some wandered in desert wasteland, finding no way to a city where they could settle. So the caravan that is coming back, so it actually applies to the Israelites in the first leg of coming to Canaan, when they were led by Moses, and they wasted due to judgment for 40 years, and they wandered in the wasteland. And it again applies to the same Israelites who are in the captivity, who do not know what to do. And God, while they were in Babylon, I'm sure when they were in Babylonian captivity, people who do not read Daniel's prophecy or understand that would have thought, we as a nation are finished. Nebuchadnezzar comes and burns down the temple. It burns down all the houses of the rich men, and the land is laid to waste. The whole land, the whole nation, of which God said, you will be a mighty nation, the whole nation collapsed. There's nothing there for them to think about. And this God comes back and tells that, I will redeem you. And it was through Cyrus who decreed that, okay, all the Jews that are there, go. And when they were going, Cyrus appointed leaders, he gave them provisions. God did everything to make their path straight. They were in Babylon, not knowing what was going on. The same thing when we apply to our life. Imagine a life without God, for us at least, as believers. And I was just hearing this sermon on the internet, and it tells about what could have happened to our lives if only God did not open our lives. Maybe we wouldn't have been here, and so on. Next, maybe materialist people would say, okay, I would still have job, I would still go and do. But imagine for a minute a life without God. And it struck me that, I don't know, I shared my testimony also sometime back, how I ended up marrying Angela. Not even knowing who she is, and she did not know who I was. Totally different continents, but purely based on God's leading, I was able to convince my own self that, yes, this may be the good God's choice. Or even my job, even anything that we do, we have this provision where we can go to somebody about a situation that we do not know, and cry to him and ask him, what is your counsel? With a strong conviction that this counsel may be the best counsel, right? What could have happened if God was not there? God did not die for us. That's what the next verse goes about. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. Can somebody read this verse in Telugu, please?
ఆకలి దప్పుల చేత వారి ప్రాణం వారిలో సొమ్మసిల్లుచున్నది.
ఆకలి దప్పుల చేత వారి ప్రాణం సొమ్మసిల్లు. The literal translation is like they were faint. They were about to pass out. So, I don't know how many of you can relate to this verse, but as an individual, as a sinner, if I were to look back at my days prior to Lord opening my eyes, this is what my condition was. Not knowing where I was, not knowing where I was going, not knowing what was in store for me. The life was going out and I was passing out. My life was ebbing out. I was spending my days not knowing why I am spending my days, not knowing where I am going. Maybe I am studying, I am trying to become something, but deep down there is no goal which is eternal. And that's where, if you look at it, that was all about the predicament. I'm sure each of us have this story applied to our lives in different ways, whichever way you can talk about. But we wandered in the desert, wasteland, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. We wandered, and then what did we do? What did children of Israel do? The psalmist records, then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and He delivered them from distress. It applies to the Israelites when they cried out to the Lord, even in desert land, even when they were so rebellious that they didn't have water. Even when Moses rebelled, not giving honor to the Lord, he still ended up giving that water that they thirsted for, giving that manna that they had to be fed with, giving that the non-vegetarian food that they were loathing for by sending quails, even when he knew that these people are rebellious, definitely. So, as a father, now I look at what Ethan does, and anything that he does wrong, sometimes I try to scold him, sometimes I try to discipline him, but sometimes when it goes overboard, Angela knows it, I take a stick and try to beat him or scare him. If only God did that to us. If only God did that to us, I think every day I'd get good beating. I don't know about all of you, but that's my story. This is after Lord opening my eyes. But what would be if Lord did not open my eyes? What could have happened? And does this apply to everybody here? It doesn't apply to everybody here only. It applies to every human being that is born on this world, who is born in his nature, but who lost his way to God. And all through it looks at the aimlessness of the person. the restlessness of the person. We wandered, not knowing where we are going, and we were thirsty, we were hungry too. And then they say, then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and He delivered them from their distress. Sinner comes in and says, okay, now I realize that I'm wandering, I don't know where to go, what to go. I'm not like Abraham, who looked for a city whose author and whose foundation was Jesus Christ. The sinner comes and what does he do? They cried to the Lord in their trouble. The Israelites, when they cried, they got. The Israelites in Babylon, when they cried, the Lord delivered them. Does it say anything about they mended their ways, they straightened up their ways, they did some good works, they stopped doing bad works? Does it say anything? And this is an analogy of the personal experience of people who are standing in the temple after return from Babylon and reciting this and saying that we cried and the Lord answered. Even in our lives too. Did we do anything to merit God's attention? Why should God listen to us? He has so many people to address to. He has so many things to do. What makes God to choose Solomon instead of somebody on the road? Does Solomon have a better degree? Does Solomon have anything else? No. Maybe Solomon is worse than other people. Sheer mercy and grace that calls upon the Lord to even look upon me and then hear my cry. When a baby cries, the parents immediately look. Right? Because it's their own baby. But would the same parents look for somebody who's on the cry, or somebody who's crying on the road? Maybe they may glance at the baby and feel, oh God, oh no, and they move on. But this God, as a good Samaritan, heard your cry and my cry. And what did He do? He delivered them from their distress. Can somebody read it again in Telugu, please? I'm sorry, I'm asking it to be read in Telugu because it's very, we can relate it to us in our language. And somebody, if you have any Hindi Bible, if anybody you can read, that would be great too. Sixth and seventh.
వారు కష్టకాలమందు యెహోవాకు మొరపెట్టిరి, ఆయన వారి ఆపద నుండి వారిని విడిపించెను. వారు ఒక నివాసపురం చేరినట్లు చక్కని త్రోవ ఆయన వారికి నడిపించెను.
నివాసపురం చేరినట్టు చక్కని త్రోవ నడిపించెను. Anybody Hindi Bible or anyone? Okay. So here, the sinner, what does he bring to the Lord? This wandering traveler doesn't have anything with him, cannot offer anything to the person whom he is crying to. He has nothing to offer, no works, no achievement, no accomplishment. All he is a man without a GPS in this world. He doesn't even know where he is, and he is asking or crying. And then what does God do? He shows that heavenly GPS. I remember some time back, I think 31st December, when Solomon Ka was sharing the testimony of how they lost their way in the night, and GPS was showing a wrong route, which if they had taken would have gone long distance. An earthly device failure could have resulted in such a loss. And here is a heavenly master with a heavenly GPS directly telling this wandering, wayfaring traveler who does not even know where he is, showing the straight way. This is the way to heaven. This is the way to the city where they could settle. These people were actually the Israelites, they were coming back. When they're coming back, right? They might have heard all stories. You would have heard of Nehemiah. When Nehemiah hears the story of what's happening in Jerusalem, he cries, he weeps. And I'm sure other Jews also had heard the story. So when the Israelites heard the story, Why do they have to go back to Jerusalem? What is there left for them? They would have had all thoughts of mind, and also they have to go through actually a literal desert. So when they were in Babylon, they were in a desert, physically speaking. They were in a social desert, they were in a cultural desert, they were in totally isolated from the Babylonians as such. But then when they're going back, right, first thing they did not know the way. Maybe the caravans would have known the way. Fine, there may be perils even on their journey. But when they go to Jerusalem or when they go to the land of Israel, they do not know where to settle. That's when God provided leaders. God provided provisions to Cyrus to say, okay, go back to Jerusalem and build your temple, build your places. And this God, when we were wandering in sin, not knowing where we are going, showed us that way to go directly to the heavenly city. Can somebody read Revelation 7:15?
Therefore they are before the throne of God, that serve him day and night in his temple, and he who sits on the throne will dwell among them.
He who sits, okay, let me read it again so that they, 7:15, they are before the throne of God, serve him day and night in temple. This is where our final destination will be. And what merit did we bring to the Lord to bring us to this place? And he goes back to everybody who has been wandering here and there, telling, come unto me, all ye that labor, and I will give you rest. And this kind of grace is so uncalled for from our side. It's purely grace and mercy that the psalmist records. And then, so we saw the predicament, we saw the situation they were in, we saw the petition, and we saw the pardon. And then it culminates into, let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love, for his wonderful deeds for men. When I read this verse in our family prayer, it just recounted about what God has done to me in my life. And the psalmist also comes back and says, let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds towards men. So the psalm starts about give thanks to the Lord. In one of the, I think in NIV or in other versions it says, oh, that people would come and give thanks to the Lord. This is an exclamatory mark that is, I mean, the writer or whoever is narrating this, it calls the people to come and give thanks to the Lord. And also, this small example, and it goes down to say, for he satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. In verse 5, it talks about they were hungry and they were thirsty. In verse 8, satisfied the exact needs that these people wanted. What did we need in our life and how did God respond? Did we stand before the train, running into the train station and say, God, let the train be 1 minute late. Please, I'm late, I'm running, please. And did it happen? Students who are studying, God, I didn't prepare well, but I want good marks. Can you please help me? I read only this portion. Can only these questions come? As a student, I did better, Lord. If only you got 99 and pray, God, I want 100. I can't get 100 somewhere. Please help me. Did God answer you? God answers the very need that you want. And that goes beyond the redemption. God answered when we were sinners. God answered when we were looking for a destination, not knowing where we are. God answers the very needs of the human flesh and whatever we need, even outside the spiritual realm. And he says, it satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. And what brings this is three characteristics of God. What we see is in this, God gives his undivided attention to me. God may have many children. God doesn't say, wait, let me deal with this kid and come back to you. God doesn't say, you know what, I'm busy. Wait for a minute. God gives His undivided attention, and then God gives His unqualified attention. He gives an undivided attention. He gives an unqualified attention. What did they do here? That they were to be answered. They cried to the Lord in the trouble. That's all they did. That's the only thing that talks about what the lost traveler did. And what does it take for us? All it takes is, come unto me. It's so free, right? And we do not appreciate the things that are free in our house or in our lives. And we may respect or regard things that we pay the price for. But the things that we get free, we never regard it. And here, this God, no matter whether you regard it or not, He gives you His unqualified attention. And this God can fill your thirst, can fill your hunger. This is what this God is all about. And I read some interesting analogy, which I just wanted to bring to, I just want to read it out, so that it gives you a perspective about how could it be without a God. It goes like this. Imagine praying and hearing this. Thank you for calling my Father's house. Please select one of the 4 options. Press 1 for request. Press 2 for thanksgiving. Press 3 for complaints. Press 4 for all other inquiries. You're calling. So kids, imagine you calling God. When you lift up the phone and you call, these are the 4 numbers. The 4 numbers are press 1 for request. Press 2 for thanksgiving. Press 3 for complaints. Press 4 for inquiries. So what if God used the familiar excuse? All of the angels are helping other customers right now. Please stay on the line. Your call will be answered in the order it was received. So when you call God and say, God, I'm desperate, I need something. And if God says, all of the angels are busy, please wait in the line, for others are also waiting, and you will be answered when it is your time comes. If only God did that. And then you get some responses like, once you press 4 or press 3 or press 2, then if you want to speak to Gabriel, press 1. If you want to speak to Michael, press 2. If you want to other angels, press 3. And it goes on to say, if you want to talk, hear about King David, a psalm for you, press 6. For reservations at my Father's house, simply press the letters JOHN on the keypad, followed by the number 316, which is John 3:16. For answers to nagging questions about dinosaurs or things like that, wait until you come here. Our computers show that you have called once today already. Please hang up immediately. This office is closed for the weekend. Please call again on Monday. How would it be? When I try to call somebody, even in the bank, right, which is so-called 24/7, when I don't get the people within 2 minutes, I would want to complain. The music is still on. If God only says, office is closed, what an awesome God we have. Who, after laying down His life, wants to answer every call of yours, meet every need of yours in the same moment, at the same time. And He doesn't have proxies. He doesn't have angels to be routed through. He doesn't have any connectivity numbers to. He's a direct God who can answer your any prayer, any time. And this is a God who delivered you and we never knew where we were in the first place, and gave you a GPS direction to go directly to a city where you can settle. And it tells you in Revelation 17 what we read. You will stand before this very throne of this great God to worship Him along with so many other saints. Maybe I can never stand in parallel to the great men of God like Billy Graham or Bhaktivinoda. But I have this hope that I'll stand with them I may not be qualified as big as they are, but I have this hope. I'll stand along with them and stand before this great throne and tell this God what this God meant. And today being Father's Day, what is the new thing that we have to tell your Father? Upon our lives, let's reflect again and again in our lives as to where we are, what we are. And our own personal testimony is a strong witness against our own self, which would provoke us to worship this great God as to what He has done. When I was celebrating my birthday last week, when I was looking at what God has done, I was about to step out of this country, as all of you know, and I had like 2 days. And in 2 years, God did so much U-turn, which I cannot. And that's my testimony. That I was a lost traveler like this. And this God gave me everything that I needed. And He put me in a city where I could settle. And that's why I would want all of you to come and thank this great God of mine, like the psalmist, and say, and look at His wonderful deeds that He has done to me and to man. And I would call upon you to reflect on this and think about it, because He satisfies the thirsty and fills the hungry with good things. So whenever you get time, try to meditate on this psalm. This is a very wonderful psalm. And if time permits, sometime during the next few time, probably we'll look at the other illustrations and how it goes back. And I just want to conclude with the last verse. Let's all of us read it again. Let's all of us read it again. And I would request John to first read it in Telugu loudly, and then we'll read all of us together.
బుద్ధిమంతుడైన వాడు ఈ విషయంలోనూ ఆలోచించుతూ యెహోవా కృపాతిశయమును జనుల తలపోయును కాక.
బుద్ధిమంతులైన వాళ్ళు ఈ విషయంను ఆలోచించండి. People who are wise, let him understand. So let's read this again. Whoever is wise, let him teach these things and consider the great love of God. Consider the great love of God, and it automatically draws you to worship Him. Thank you.